Hi everybody, welcome back for more Tale of Despereaux. It's getting so good, isn't it? Okay, if you remember where we left off last time, Meg had just finished delivering the jailer his meal, so she was bringing the tray back upstairs from the dungeon into the castle. And on her way up, Rescuro stopped her. And the neat thing about Rescuro and Meg is that even though she can't hear other people, because of his rat voice, she can hear him perfectly. And he told her his plan. Now, we don't know what that plan is. The author hasn't told it to us yet. But we do know that his plan involves getting revenge on the princess. Because he's mad at the princess because the princess looked at him, gave him a mean face after he fell into the queen's soup, and then she had a heart attack and died, right? So he wants to get revenge on the princess because she gave him a mean face. And we know that Meg wants to be a princess, so I'm wondering if Meg is going to be involved in that plan. And the other thing that happened at the very end of the last chapter was that on the tray that Meg was carrying, there was a red napkin, and that red napkin started to move. And I asked you if you had any ideas of what would make that red napkin move. So, we are about to start the fourth section of this book. And the fourth section, the title of this section of the book is called Recalled to the Light. Recalled means to do something again or to bring it back. So we also know that light is important to this story, right? Because we know Rescuro loves the light. And it keeps coming up like that. You know how much he loves it. We also know that Despereaux looks into the light. And that's really unusual. It's unusual for Rescuro to do it because he's a rat. It's unusual for Despereaux because he's a mouse. We also know about Despereaux. He is a mouse. And we also know that he loves the princess and wants to do anything to be with the princess, right? So let's take all those things that we already know about the characters, and we're going to start this section, Recalled to the Light. And in this section, the first chapter is chapter 34. It's the 34th chapter in the whole book. And the title of this chapter is called Kill 'Em, Even If They's Already Dead. No. You ready? Here we go. Reader, you did not forget about our small mouse, did you? Back to the light. That was what Gregory whispered to him when he wrapped Despereaux in his napkin and placed him on the tray. And then Meg, after her conversation with Rescuro, carried the tray into the kitchen. And when she saw Cook, she shouted, "It's me, Miggery So, back from the deep downs." "Ah, lovely," said Cook, "and ain't we all relieved?" And Meg put the tray on the counter. Here, said Cook, "your duties ain't done. You must clear it." "How's that?" shouted Meg. "You must clear the tray," shouted Cook. And she reached over and took a hold of the napkin and gave it a good shake. And, can I hear you? Are you guessing what's going to happen? I think you got it. She took hold of the napkin and she gave it a good shake, and Despereaux tumbled out of the napkin and landed directly plop, onomatopoeia, plop, in a measuring cup full of oil. So it was Despereaux. So finally, all three of the stories are coming together. Despereaux and Rescuro and Meg. They're all coming together now in this section of the book. Okay. "Ah!" said Cook. "A mouse in my kitchen, in my cooking oil, in my measuring cup. You, Meg, kill him directly." Oh no, he just came back in the story. Ooh. Meg bent her head and looked at the mouse slowly sinking to the bottom of the glass cup. Poor Despereaux. "Poor little micey," she said, and she stuck her hand into the oil and pulled him out by his tail. Despereaux, gasping and coughing and blinking at the bright life, could have wept with joy at his rescue, but he was not even given the time to cry. "Kill him!" shouted Cook. "Go," said Mig. "All right." And holding Despereaux by the tail, she went to get the kitchen knife. But the mouse tail, as it was covered in oil, was slick and very difficult to hold on to. And Mig, in reaching for the knife, loosened her grip, and Despereaux fell to the floor, right? Because he fell in oil, and oil is really, really slippery. So she couldn't hold on to him. He slipped right out of her hands. Mig looked down at the little bundle of brown fur. "Go, that killed him for sure," she said. "Ah, kill him even if he's already dead," shouted Cook. And that's the title of this chapter, right? That's my philosophy with mice. If they're alive, kill them. If they're dead, kill them. That way you can be certain of having yourself a dead mouse, which is the only kind of mouse to have. That's some good philosophy, that is. Kill him even if he's already dead. "Hurry, you cauliflower-eared fool!" shouted Cook. "Hurry!" Despereaux lifted his head from the floor, and the afternoon sun was shining through the large window. He had time to think about how miraculous the light was, and then it disappeared, and Mig's face loomed into view. So he's looking at the bright sun. See, that's more light that the author is telling us about, right? And all of a sudden, his view of the sun is blocked, and then all he sees is Mig's face right in front of him. She studied him, breathing through her mouth. "Little micey," she said to him, "ain't you gonna skedaddle?" Despereaux looked for a long moment into Mig's small, concerned eyes, and then there came a blinding flash of the sound of metal moving through the air as Mig brought the kitchen knife down, down, down. Despereaux felt a very intense pain in his hind quarters, his butt. He leapt up and into action. Reader, he scurried. Remember at the beginning of the story when his brother was trying to teach him how to scurry and he didn't want to scurry? He wanted to look at the lights and read the book. He never wanted to scurry before, but now he has to scurry. Reader, he scurried. He scurried like a professional mouse. He zigged to the left, he zagged to the right. "Go!" shouted Mig. "Missed him!" "Ain't that a surprise?" said Cook, just as Despereaux scurried under a crack through the pantry door. "I got the little mice's tail, though," said Mig, and she bent over and she picked up Despereaux's tail and held it up, proudly displaying it to Cook. "So," shouted Cook, "what good will that do when the rest of him has disappeared into the pantry?" A pantry is a place in a kitchen where you keep the food. "I don't know," said Mig, and she braced herself as Cook advanced upon her, intending to give her a good clout to the ear. "I don't know." Poor Mig, it really wasn't her fault. He was so oily, right? Okay, there's an illustration for me to show you, and the caption underneath the illustration says, "Gore," shouted Mig, "missed him." And in this illustration, you can see the knife coming down on the kitchen floor. And if you look very closely, here's Despereaux, and here's his tail. Poor little guy. Chapter 35, The Knight in Shining Armor. Who do you think is going to be the knight in shining armor in this story? Let's see. Despereaux was pondering the reverse of that question. He was wondering not what he would do with his tail, but what he would do without it. He was sitting on a bag of flour high atop a shelf in the pantry, crying for what he had lost. The pain in his hind quarters, his butt, was so intense that he wept because of it, and he also cried because he was happy. He was out of the dungeon. He had been recalled to his life. His rescue had happened just in time for him to save the Princess P from the terrible fate that the rat had planned for her. Now, don't forget, when the rat told Miggery his plan to get revenge on the princess, Despereaux heard it all because he was under the red napkin that was on the tray. So he knows about the plan. How do you think he feels about that plan? He certainly doesn't want Princess P to get hurt, right? Okay. So Despereaux wept with joy and pain and with gratitude. Gratitude means you're thankful. He wept with exhaustion and despair and hope. He wept with all the emotions a young small mouse who had been sent to his death and then delivered from it in time to save his beloved can feel. Reader, the mouse wept. And he lay down on the sack of flour and slept. Outside the castle, the sun set and the stars came out one by one, and then they disappeared and gave way to the rising sun, and still Despereaux slept. And while he slept, he dreamt. He dreamt of the stained glass windows and the dark of the dungeon. In Despereaux's dream, the light came to life, brilliant and glorious, the shape of a knight swinging a sword. The knight fought in the dark. And the dark took many shapes. First, the dark was his mother uttering phrases in French, and then the dark became his father beating the drum. The dark was Furlough wearing a black hood and shaking his head no, and the dark became a huge rat smiling a smile that was evil and sharp. So all those things in his dream that were dark, those were all the bad things that were happening to him earlier, right? The dark, Despereaux cried, turning his head to the left. The light, he murmured, turning his head to the right. He called out to the knight. He shouted, "Who are you? Will you save me?" So in his dream, he's dreaming of a knight, like a knight in shining armor, and he's trying to talk to him in his dream. "Tell me who you are," Despereaux shouted, but the knight did not answer him. The knight stopped swinging the sword, and he looked at Despereaux. "You know me," he said. "No," said Despereaux, "I don't." "You do," said the knight, and he slowly took the armor off his head and revealed no one, nothing. The suit of armor was empty. "Oh no," said Despereaux, "there is no knight in shining armor. It is all just make-believe, like happily ever after." And in his sleep, reader, the small mouse began to cry. So right there, Kate DiCamillo tells us that Despereaux is having in a dream, and he's dreaming of all the bad, all the dark things that happened to him before, and then this knight appears, and then when the helmet comes off the knight, no one is there, and it's empty. And so it makes Despereaux wonder in his dream if the knight's in shining armor, if it's real, if there are such things as knight in shining armor. And then remember back to the beginning of the story. Remember when he was wondering, is there happily ever after? Or is that just something in stories? So in his dream, he's thinking the same thing. Is there such thing as a knight in shining armor? Is there such thing as happily ever after? Or is that just for stories? So that's where we're going to leave off. I hope you enjoyed these chapters.